This week, we finally review Avengers Endgame. So pop some corn, grab a soda, and take a seat, because you're now listening to The Casual Cinema. Hi everybody, welcome back to The Casual Cinema. I am one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by Nathan, and we are finally back from the Easter break to talk about Avengers. It's been a long time coming, and we know you guys have waited for it, but we are finally going to have a little discussion about the movie. Now, full disclosure here, this is just going to be a spoiler review. We're not going to bother doing spoiler-free. This movie's already became, by the time of this recording, the second highest grossing film of all time, so I feel like at this point, we're just going to throw all caution to the wind and talk full spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie, turn this off, go see it, come back. But for those who have seen it, hopefully you're in for a treat. So, Nathan, just first impressions. From what you remember of the film, did you like it? And why?
Hello, we're back. How's it going? Yep, overall I have to say it was a fantastic wrap-up to the Infinity Saga, and it was a really good film.
Fair enough then. All right.
I don't know how to elaborate on that, please. I need to bounce a few. I don't remember a lot of the minor details of the film, but I really enjoyed it. I liked what they did with all the characters. Sorry, I keep forgetting we can do spoilers because usually we don't. I always found Hawkeye to be an annoying character, and I thought they even did a really good job with how they portrayed Hawkeye in this movie, and I actually liked him in this too.
No, I totally agree. For me, this movie more than Infinity War was definitely a character piece. I think that there was so much more emotional heft and impact in this movie compared to Infinity War for completely different reasons. That I felt that characters like Tony, Steve, Thor, and even some more minor characters like, as you said, Hawkeye, Nebula was really surprising. Really enjoyed Nebula, and Hulk as well, all showed a lot of promise and really excelled and shined throughout the film.
Yeah, but in saying that, I think because they almost made the first half of the movie a character drama. It does have a really slow section of the movie before it really picks up. A lot of people have said to me that it's a bit boring in the middle to have a slow start to the film.
Yeah, I mean,
a slow middle section.
Yeah, and I think that's a fairly reasonable criticism of the film. And I wanted to get into that definitely because as a point towards the plot and I guess the narrative of the movie and its pacing, I think that, we are dealing with the first ever 3-hour-long Marvel movie. And I know that for some people that was such a big thing. People were like, oh, I'm intimidated because it's a 3-hour-long movie. I'm like, bitch, I've seen Lord of the Rings in the cinemas. 3 hours is nothing. So if you're going to sit there and worry about the Avengers, I'm going to be like...
I was intimidated because I have a weak bladder. That's...
Oh, look, I still walked out of the movie needing to pee, but that's besides the fact. If we're talking about the pacing of the film and I guess the first and second acts, having seen it twice, I felt like when I watched it the second time, normally when I watch a movie during its second viewing, I kind of become more bored and I wait for the parts that I know are amazing. In this case, I know the third act of Endgame is so damn good that it makes every other third act in any other Marvel movie just seem so superfluous. This movie just blows every other third act out of the water, to be honest with you. So sitting through Act 1 and 2, it was slow. It was a bit of a burn. But I think that before the first act got boring, it was as if, oh, here we go, second act. It was like they knew things were beginning to get slow, so they went, right, here's the time travel. And then we got into the second act, and just when things in the second act were starting to get slow, it was like, here we go, here's the snap, and third act. And I felt like, in terms of the pacing, it just fitted perfectly. I think more than 3 hours would have been too much, and I think anything less than that would have taken away from the emotional impact of the film. That's just how I think, anyway.
No, I agree. I was happy with the overall runtime. Yeah, I did find it a bit slow when I watched it. I think I don't know. I guess some of the stuff maybe just felt pointless. You didn't need it. Everything the characters are talking about almost felt like filler. Yeah, trying to build emotion to his characters. I guess because it was a send-off for a lot of them, they just want to, have some screen time with them and just, just show their how they're feeling at the moment and stuff like that. I suppose.
Yeah, well, talking
because what I mean is because it focuses on Captain America and Black Widow doing a lot of talking, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's because it's their final movie, so they're trying to give them a bit more screen time before sending them off.
Yeah, well, it's a bit funny, isn't it? Because we talk about the fact that it's Black Widow's final movie, but there is a Black Widow film that is going into production later this year. So whether or not it's actually the last time we'll see Black Widow, that remains to be seen. But
yeah, guessing that's going to be a prequel? I don't know.
I'm guessing so. But on the topic of characters, I do agree that I think Tony and Steve are really focused on the most in this film. Obviously, we know that Hawkeye will be appearing in some sort of Disney Plus television series by the sounds of things. And Thor obviously looks like, by the end of this film, you kind of guess he's going to be in Guardians Volume 3.
Oh, yes, I love that. The As Guardians of the Galaxy. That was my favorite
so
joke.
Good.
That was my favorite joke of the movie. I really like that. That was good. I'm excited for that. I really hope he's a main character in Guardians story and they don't just somehow shaft him off to the side. I really hope he's a Guardian of the Galaxy now.
Yeah, because I think that's something we can segue into with the film. And as I talked about earlier, the idea of the characters of the movie. And I think that a lot of the reviews and a lot of the criticisms coming out of this film are aimed at the time travel, are aimed at certain characters and the decisions they make and the things that the Russo brothers and the writers and Kevin Feige did with them. And I think that someone like Thor, for example, and perhaps the Hulk, these characters were changed in ways that were surprising. I think that initially I didn't know how to feel about Thor's change. It was funny. That much was certain. I was like, this is funny. I like this. Well, I wasn't saying I like this, but I definitely said it was funny.
I think it made a lot of sense because he's the real heroic type, and he couldn't save everyone, right? That's the thing. He's you defeat Thanos, that's it. It's over. We can fix everything. And then he defeats Thanos, but there's no victory in that. He's just executed a guy in a hut, right? And there's no, nothing's fixed. Everyone wasn't brought back, so he's feeling like he failed.
Yeah, I think that at the beginning of this film, you're seeing how Tony, Steve, and Thor are reacting to what has just happened. I think that from Thor's perspective, he just wants revenge. He's angry. He seeks vengeance for what's happened. He wants to kill the bad guy, basically. I think that with Steve, he wants more justice than revenge. He just wants to see the people who have died come back. He has a mission. He wants to see that fulfilled. And I think that with Tony, he just doesn't want any part of it. I think Tony has, in his mind, failed.
And also, he's the people most important to him have survived, so that's good enough for him, I think. Too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for him, the only person he did lose was Peter, was Spider-Man, and he chooses to forget about that. He's choosing to sort of go, I lost that person, I had that person die in my arms, but I'm just going to forget about that and think about how Pepper's still alive. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I think
Rhodey's
Tony Stark probably, for me, had the best character arc over the entire saga, right? He's gone from just, this such a selfish person to doing the most selfless thing a man can do, right? Just sacrificing himself for the sake of the universe.
Well, that was that's the first thing that I really wanted to talk about was just Tony. And I think the fact that what I mentioned earlier, the idea that he wanted no part of what was going to happen with Thanos, the fact that you've just mentioned he had this big arc, was because he wanted, for those 5 years that we have between Thanos' death and their eventual decision to travel back in time, Tony just wants nothing to do with the Avengers. He wants to focus on this family life. He wants to let heroism go. He just wants to be a dad. And that I think what brought him back into the fold was that he had a duty. He had a duty to those who had fallen. He had a duty to Spider-Man. He felt that urge to come back.
He definitely, if he knows he can help, he finds it hard not to, I think. Same, in Infinity War, how he goes into space, It's and Peppers calls him and tells him not to do it. He's like, he has to do it.
Well, it harkens back to what he said to, or what Peter said to him in Civil War, which was the idea if you have these abilities and bad things happen and you do nothing about it, then basically what does that make you? And I think that that's a callback, and it makes sense that Tony decided, you know what, I have to do something. And he definitely did do that, and he helped them in such a big way.
Yeah, but in saying that part was so cheesy, how he had his computer up in the house, and he's like, oh, who knows, I'm just going to try this, I don't know if it's going to work. He goes, oh, it worked, I discovered time travel.
Well, yeah, it was pretty quick, but at the same time, we have to kind of suspend disbelief, because, you have to kind of go with the fact that Ant-Man just came back because of a rat messing with a van, and he's like, he comes back and he goes, oh, by the way, do you guys know anything about, quantum physics and stuff like that? And they're all just like, what? And the fact that Tony just sits in his like basement and goes, dials a few things on his computer, and then immediately it's like, oh yeah, I've just discovered time travel, done. It's a bit like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, it's weird.
But I think that what I do want to talk about is the fact that you see Tony, for the most part, throughout this film as the Tony we know, as you've talked about, this sort of selfish kind of guy. In this case, he's focusing on Pepper. He's focusing on his daughter, Morgan. He's focusing on being a father. And then when he does feel that urge to help and bring back those who are dead, when he eventually sees his father and goes back in time, I think that's when we begin to see a change. And I think that's when he sees his dad and he realizes that his dad isn't I guess you could say, the person that he thought he was.
He's a lot like Tony's.
Yes, similar. And I think that Tony used to think that his dad was a bit of an asshole. And I think seeing him now, he goes, oh, wow, maybe he's not.
Yeah, he tried his hardest. Maybe he didn't do a good job, but he had good intentions, right, to raise a child. And maybe he didn't do the best job of it, but like, at that stage, he was like, he was really nervous and excited to be a dad. And I guess then Tony could relate to him, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So when you eventually get to that moment towards the end of the film when Tony has to make that choice, when he looks at Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange, lifts up one of his fingers and basically points out to him. I love that moment. It's a really great moment because it's basically Doctor Strange telling Tony, this is the moment. This is the one chance we've got. And in that moment, Tony realizes that for the first time ever, he has to think about everybody else and not himself, and he has to take the bullet. And I think that when he does, and he obviously utters the line, I am Iron Man, it's such a callback, but it's such a culmination of everything, all these movies.
Do you know the story behind that? Did you hear about that?
What are you talking about? No, that's all right.
Quickly interrupt here. So when they originally shot the film, he said nothing. So Thanos says, I am inevitable, and then he fails to do the click because Tony took the stones. And then he just smiled and clicked his fingers. And that was it. He said nothing. And then when they were in the editing room, the directors, the Russo brothers, they were like, he has to say something. This character is all about quips and, it just felt empty. They didn't say anything. And it was actually the editor who was sitting there. He edited a lot of the Marvel films. Yeah. I think almost all of them. And he said, well, what if he says, I'm Iron Man, because it just sounds so good after I'm Inevitable. And then they went, yeah, we have to film that straight away. And it was actually the last pickup shot they did for the film. It was filmed in January this year.
Jeez.
So they got Robert Downey Jr. back in. They, got him in front of the green screen, whatever, and got him to say, I am Iron Man, and click his fingers. They reshot it. It was the last thing they shot. How crazy is that?
That is pretty nuts. But it paid off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like it's so intentional, like it's in the script, yeah, but it wasn't. That's yeah.
Nah, it works so well. And it's such a great thing to hear about because, as we know, it meant so much for the character, and seeing his death, was emotionally affecting not only to the people around him, but to the audience. And holy crap, it was just that moment of seeing this person, that first appeared in 2008 die was just holy crap. And then the funeral they had for him and everything, every callback and every little tidbit, seeing characters you hadn't seen in a while, like the kid from Iron Man 3, who initially everyone was like,
yeah.
Who?
I was like, who is that person? And yeah, but I was told by someone else who it was. I had no idea.
But the fact that they brought him back, it's just one of those little things where you're like, who is that? And you go, oh, it's the kid from, oh, that's a really nice touch. You know what I mean? And I think that's why the third act of this film is so good, is because it's such a celebration of just all things Marvel. And leading past that funeral, we then get to the moment with Cap, aka Steve Rogers, which arguably, if we're not talking about how massive an arc Tony has had, going from this selfless individual to being, a selfish individual to being a selfless one, then we have to talk about how Cap went from this all-American Boy Scout who thinks that everything's just red, white, and blue, and good and bad, to being someone who basically said, you know what, I've done everything I could possibly do. I've fought the war I've fought. I want to spend the rest of my life with the woman I love. And I think that was just such a touching moment, and it was such a good moment because it wasn't just like, oh, we'll just kill Cap, because everyone went into this movie thinking they're just going to kill Cap. And the fact that they didn't, it was just really nice to see a happy, sad ending.
It was really good how they did all the deaths like in a different way. Like they weren't all just like dying in the final battle. Yeah. Well, two of them were a sacrifice for the greater good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that moment was really good too, to get the Soul Stone between Black Widow and Hawkeye. That was a really good moment how they're like fighting to essentially kill themselves. Yeah, that was really, I really enjoyed that. That was good. And I don't really like Black Widow, but I thought that was like a really good character moment for her too.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Because, she really had nothing to lose, whereas Hawkeye had a family that could still...
Yeah, and a lot of people have talked about how, Hawkeye should have been the one because they've set Black Widow up so much, but you really have to think about, in the same way that, people have criticised Falcon getting the shield instead of Bucky, it makes you think about Hawkeye's got a family, and Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, hasn't done the bad things that Bucky has done.
I also think Falcon is probably a closer friend to Captain America at this point than Bucky ever was, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, he's a more recent friend too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more the fact that I feel, for me...
And also, I think, well, look, they wanted to do something different, because everyone thought that Bucky was going to get the shield. They're like, oh, how can we twist this around? But there actually is like a comic book of... Yeah, Falcon having the shield, and he looks awesome. Like, I can't wait to see that.
I saw several comics where Falcon had the shield, and he had like the white suit, red, white, and blue suit, and it looked really cool. And I was like, that looks awesome. And people were like, oh, but Bucky should have it. But I'm like, again, to me, Sam is just a better representation of what or who should wield the shield, right? Because it's different when we talk about who wields the hammer with Thor and who wields the shield with Cap, because...
Yeah, Falcon's more of a leader as well, I think.
Yeah, and I think, that idea that he served in a war and he did his time, and that now he's just been trying to help people, it makes sense that Falcon is the person that gets the shield. And, talking about just Cap, in general... I thought that he was so well done in this movie before the scene obviously we see with him and Peggy, but everything before that was just so well done. The idea that he's helping others cope with the tragedy that was the snap. The fact that he felt like he had a duty to the Avengers, kind of like Tony, but more to just everybody else. And the fact that he was willing to sacrifice himself, much like Tony, to carry out this mission. And like Tony seeing his father, the moment Cap saw Peggy was the moment he went, I need that life. Or like that moment he just went, I haven't seen her in so long. And people might say, oh, but what about old Peggy? He saw her in Winter Soldier, but we know that really wasn't Peggy. Because when you see that scene and you go back and watch it, Peggy's not really there because she's dying and she's getting old and she's suffering because of it. And I think when he saw the real Peggy, that's when he went, Tony's right. I need to go back. I need to take the time to be with her. So I think it was executed really, really well.
Just speaking of some of the side characters that pop up, I really loved how many characters in this film, like how many so minor characters are in this. Like you had Korg, and and you had Loki popping up again. Yeah, you had Tony's dad. You had Peggy. You even had Jarvis, which hasn't been in a movie yet. He's only been in the Agent Carter TV show as the same actor.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice touch. I really enjoyed that. I was like, oh, wow, they're doing that? Oh, that's really cool. But no, I thought it was really good. And, you know...
and the lady from Doctor Strange, I don't know what her name is.
The ancient one. The ancient one. Yeah. It, yeah. I was going to say, her conversation with Bruce Banner, you know, it's just such a great discussion. It's such a great philosophical discussion about not only time travel, but just the events that are going to happen and the events that have happened. And seeing her again, because, you know, Tilda Swinton is such a great actress, and her performance in that scene was just so well done that, yeah, I thought all the side characters and people who reappeared were really well done. And obviously, you know,
I probably can't even remember them all. Oh, like Thor's mum, and even seeing Jane Foster have a cameo, like, it was crazy. So many.
Yeah, and even the way that they used Thor's mum, with the development of Thor as a character, the way that they brought him back into the fold, and the fact that he was this guy who just wanted no part with anything. He didn't want to do any kind of hero work. He just wanted to sit, play Fortnite, and eat junk food. And the fact that they brought him back, and that his mum was the person that told him, eat a salad, you know, you're still this person who's worthy. You're still a hero. Go be a hero. And I think there was no one else that basically could have done that. So... no, I think that was really, really well done.
Yeah, and at the end as well, I think there's a lot of like characters who come in a lot of cameos. Apparently, Howard the Duck's in, a little duck from the Guardians, and yeah, no, I really like how they just included as much as they could in this film. Like, yeah it's a lot and it's almost overwhelming, but it's very well done.
And I don't want to skip over like some other characters. Like even a character like Nebula, I think was developed really well. I thought she was the best I've ever seen her in this movie. The way that she just interacted with everyone, her moments that she had with War Machine when they encountered Star-Lord, that was just really good. And I also was surprised by what they did with the Hulk. I mean, I know I did see criticism about this because people were like, oh, we wanted the Hulk to do more action and stuff like that. And as someone who is a fan of the Hulk, I have to sort of say, well, I just enjoyed more so him and the way that they combined Bruce with this raging monster, and the fact that he was this sweet guy now. Like that taco scene with Ant-Man Paul Rudd was just so funny because it was cute and it was just harmless, and it was just, you saw this big green dude and you're like, you know what, I like him because he's not just a big monster anymore, you know what I mean? And
I love how no one knows who Ant-Man is. That's always been my favourite running joke. Like when he he's in Civil War when they're all in prison at the end.
Yeah.
And he goes to Iron Man, Hank Pym said to never trust a Stark. It's like, who are you? I love that. So good. There's no one knows who Ant-Man is.
You know, even talking about appearing characters, there's just reappearing jokes. The whole America's ass line. When they go back to 2012, it's just so well done, and I can do this all day when Cap's fighting Cap.
Oh, there's so many references and throwbacks, like especially a lot of lines. There's even the one between Hawkeye and Black Widow. For some reason, it's the only one that comes to mind when they talk about, or like Budapest or whatever. They say that in the first Avengers film. I don't know, some like mission they went on or something. Yeah, there's a lot of callbacks.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I guess, you know, just in general, the characterization was really on point. And if there's anyone else I can think of who comes to mind, I guess Thanos is the next person, because
I didn't say anything. Yeah, no, I like what they did with Hulk. It's something different, and obviously they like set this thing up in Infinity War that they were having this like some sort of like what is it? I don't know, battle between Hulk and Bruce, and like who was in charge and stuff.
Oh, sorry, go on, yeah.
And he couldn't come out on command. So I like what they did. It's kind of like they found this middle ground. These two people in one body, or they share a mind, I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess if we're jumping back to Bruce, I think it's also the fact that we might be seeing more of the Hulk and Bruce Banner. You know, I think that this was the end for Tony, and it was the end for Cap. But I don't think it's the end for Thor. I don't think it's the end for Bruce and the Hulk. I don't think it's obviously the end for Black Widow, because we're getting a Black Widow movie. I think we're seeing Hawkeye in his own television series, where I'm assuming he's I think he's training someone, like his daughter.
Well, he's getting his own show.
Yeah, exactly. It's like...
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about the Loki one and the Vision one.
No, Hawkeye's getting his own show where he's training his daughter, I believe, to become like the next sort of thing. And I'm like, oh, that sounds even pretty cool. And I guess they hinted at that at the beginning of the film. But yeah, I liked what they did with the Hulk, because it made me realize that they're not done with him yet. And I could tell that, because maybe he's not the same rage-fueled monster that we know, but that doesn't mean that he can't go on to be more of a mentor to other Avengers or to other characters.
The first thing I thought was, he's Beast from X-Men now.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
He's basically Beast, except cooler. But yeah, and jumping back to Thanos, I think that obviously Thanos was better characterized in Infinity War, but that's only because of the fact that they needed to focus on the heroes in this movie. And I think that the one line I did love from Thanos was just when he pointed out, initially I was going to kill half of humanity or half of the universe, but now I'm just going to kill everyone.
Yeah.
It was like, at least they showed that this guy could still be just a total arse. And I just really enjoyed how they developed him in that way.
Okay, I didn't realize how strong Thanos was, because, like, I don't know, I wasn't expecting him to be able to stand his ground without a single Infinity Stone against the three, like, main Avengers at once. I don't know, it's pretty strong. Well, almost overpowered.
I think that I did hear a lot of people talk about that, but the
problem is we've never seen him fight without an Infinity Stone. I think that's what the problem is. So we have no gauge of his base strength without them.
For me, it was just a matter of, this guy's a Titan. We've seen him beat the living shit out of the Hulk. So it makes sense that he can definitely hold his own if he's actually capable of wielding.
Yeah, but even then, he had the Power Stone already.
But he wasn't using it. He wasn't using it though, right? Like, you know that he's using the stones when they like light up, but he wasn't actually using the stone. He was just punching and fighting the Hulk. So for me, it was like, I know that this guy is capable of wielding this gauntlet on all of these stones, and if he's capable of doing it and is stronger, like, the comparison I have, just jumping here, is that when you see the Hulk wield the gauntlet and use the stones, it really freaking takes such a massive toll on him. But when you see Thanos hold all the stones, he's basically like,
Yeah,
like, there's just no reaction. So if you feel like, if he can do that, then obviously on his own with this massive sword spinning thing, he can deal some serious damage to Thor, Cap, and Tony.
Yeah, it only damaged his arm after he used them, didn't it? Not
yeah, of course. And speaking of that fight scene in particular, like, that moment where Cap got the hammer was just so like, oh my god. Like, I feel like everyone in the cinema was just like, wow.
Yeah, they had to bring that little tease from Age of Ultron to fruition eventually, I suppose. But it was well done. I mean, I saw it coming. Well, like, when I saw someone pick up the hammer, I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, of course. I heard some people go, oh, I thought it was just Thor calling the hammer to him or something. I'm like, right, so they're going to do a close-up on the hammer.
Straight away, I'm like, here we go. As soon as the fluid hit him, I'm like, here we go. The moment, it's here. And it was great. The other thing, though, that people have said and confused me too was he shouldn't have been able to use lightning from the hammer. Right.
Well, technically, if you can wield the hammer, then you possess the power that the hammer has, don't you? I mean...
No, I don't think so, because Thor can only do it because he's the god of thunder, because remember they say you're the god of thunder, not the god of hammers, or whatever.
Yeah, Odin does say that to him in Ragnarok, yeah. I don't really know.
I mean, whatever, I'm just going to forgive it, but...
I think this movie... I guess the reason why we haven't brought up a lot of the time travel issues, or not issues, but the problems that people have pointed out when it comes to the time travel present in this movie, even though it tried to explain it, and I think it explained it to a good enough degree, I think that if you dig deep enough, you will find the problems. And it's just another example of, look, just suspend your disbelief and acknowledge the fact that it's time travel. And whenever you do a time travel movie, you're going to have holes, you're going to have issues, but just enjoy it. And that doesn't mean that we're going to forgive it, but at least we can point out the fact that the third act of this film is just so amazing.
I think it almost can be forgiven due to such a fantastic final act and so many like great character moments throughout the film. I feel like you almost can forgive what appear to be plot holes, but may have reasoning behind them that just wasn't explained in the film, which may be explained later because they're setting up this multiverse now with the new trailer of Spider-Man. They've revealed that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it was.
So we have a lot to learn about this time travel, right? For people that didn't understand it.
I think it was build up. You know what I mean? Like, if you really think about it, I thought the second act was really good. I mean, if people criticize the second act, fine. But for me, if there's any criticisms that can be aimed, it's the first act. Even the first act, it just builds up the characters so well. So when you get to the end, you're like, you know what? I really enjoy everybody. And, I think that, touching on it just briefly, I think, some people may have been like, oh my God, here's Captain Marvel again. But she was fine in the movie. I had no issues with it. I really liked her haircut. I was like, oh, that looks really cool. And I think that everybody.
Well, that's funny because we didn't even talk about Captain Marvel.
I know, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, they definitely built her up to be a big part of this film, and she wasn't. But
well, I don't know if she was built up to be a big part of it, but she was definitely built up to be a part of it, if anything.
Maybe it's just because they set her up right before this movie came out. Maybe it's like, it just makes it look like she's a big role to play. And I mean, yeah, they show her strength. She could have easily defeated Thanos if he didn't do the sneaky with the stone. But
yeah, well, it sort of shows you...
Which is a really cool move as well.
Yeah, it shows you that in her base form and in his base form, Carol is capable of defeating Thanos. But Carol isn't so powerful that she can be able to overcome the Infinity Stones. Like, the Infinity Stones can deal some serious damage even to her. And I think that's good because it brings her down a peg. It doesn't make her out to be like this uber powerful character who's capable of everything. Even though she says that and she totes that, and that's become a part of her character, like this idea that she kind of gloats, but she kind of seems like this overconfident and cocky person. Yeah, she's smug and she's cocky. So it makes sense that when she gets brought down a peg, it's because of the fact that, you're not as powerful as you think, but that's good because it makes her more than just a one-dimensional person.
It's also that other perspective which you wouldn't have got otherwise, that's like, well, Earth isn't the only planet affected by, half of life being erased. So she had to, she patrols the whole universe, right? Or the whole galaxy. Is it universe, galaxy, whatever? But so she has to make sure all the planets are doing all right, not just Earth.
Yeah, definitely. So I do agree that she was a good part of the movie, and she wasn't overused or underused in any kind of way. I mean, as we pointed out, it was good to see some characters come back. When Valkyrie was on her Pegasus, that was like awesome. I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
So there's lots of really great tidbits in the movie, and probably can't get into every single one of them because we have to give an inevitable verdict on this movie.
I was like, the only thing I was like, it's a bit lame that Doctor Strange just held up some water the entire time.
Okay, yeah, that was a bit weird, but I guess it's because you've got another overpowered character and you don't want to have him be like, oh, just wipe everybody out in a single go. So, you have to do something to, depower these characters. But like I said, if there's no final remarks from you, I was going to go for the verdict.
I just want to talk about people as much as we can. Also, the moment when Spider-Man and Iron Man got together again, that was nice, a little hug.
Okay, yeah.
And he goes, this is nice. That was good. That was a good moment. And just Spider-Man in the last, in the climax as well was really cool. When he activated the insta-kill mode and his arms were just stabbing everyone.
Oh yeah, that was really awesome. I really enjoyed that. And I loved when Cap was he said heads up Queens, is that what he said? And then he threw the hammer.
Yeah.
And then Spidey just had to latch onto the hammer. I thought that was really cool. And the way that everybody interacted. And I loved, even when Black Panther, remembered Hawkeye's name, he remembered Clint's name. It was because they had that little share in Civil War. when he's, you know, like we talked about how Ant-Man, no one knew him, and then Hawkeye spoke to Black Panther and Civil War, was like, hi, my name's Clint, and he's like, I don't care, and stuff like that, and then they started fighting, and like now he does care, or he's at least showing the fact that he knows his name. So I thought,
yeah, there was so many callbacks, especially to Civil War. Yeah, in that last scene, there's a few callbacks, like calling him Queens. That was a throwback to Civil War, and yeah, same with the Black Panther one. And there's a few, yeah, and that Spider-Man insta-kill thing. That's obviously from Homecoming, where he doesn't know how to use the suit once he, deactivates his safety protocol. So yeah, I really like just how many references there was. Really well done.
Yeah, it was really good. Really, really good. Now, did we want to give a verdict?
Yes, we'll wrap it up. So
okay.
I just wanted to cover every character.
I know. There's so much.
Did we even cover everybody? I don't know. Hopefully, Scarlet Witch. Who cares?
Right. There's just so much to talk about because it's such a long movie. But we got to give a verdict at some point. But anyway, did you want to start us off out of where are you sort of sitting with the movie out of 5?
Okay. Now, yeah, it has what appears to be a lot of plot holes. But yeah, that final act is just something we've never seen on that scale before, and bringing all these movies together into one like big final movie, or like all these characters as well, and just doing such a good job of that, right? And just tying it all together. I think, even the numbers speak for themselves how well this film's doing, and I do want to just forgive the problems that are in the movie, and just because this is like, it's almost like a once in a lifetime experience, right? And so I do want to give it a 5 out of 5 because I honestly think it deserves it. And that doesn't mean it's a perfect film, but it's something I think everybody should see and experience.
Yeah, I think that's hitting the nail right on the head there. I had the same sort of feeling towards it. I think the movie has its problems, but the problems aren't so big that they derail everything else. Besides the third act, I actually just really loved the first and second acts of the movie. The first especially, there's just so much great character development and tremendous humanization. You're getting to see these people experience what it's like to lose, and I just think it's really well done. And what they're willing to do to save their friends and their family is just tremendous. So for me, I got to go 5 out of 5 as well. Like, this isn't saying it's a perfect film. It's not saying that everyone's going to enjoy it. I mean, you're definitely talking to someone who's seen every other Marvel movie. Obviously, you've heard from Nathan. He's seen every other Marvel movie. We might be biased, but who cares? We loved this film, man.
Well,
it's like...
Yeah, and also people have been saying that Infinity War's a better movie. Maybe that's... I don't know if that's like structure-wise or whatever, but I would probably give that film a 5 out of 5 as well, and I think this is just the next step up from that, and I think they're both fantastic films.
Yeah,
that's all.
For me, it's like I've heard that too, and I think that's because people see Infinity War, and it's a much more linear movie. It's a bit smoother around the edges because you're not dealing with time travel. You're not trying to wrap everything up. You know what I mean? But this is seriously a part 1 and part 2 of a story. And if you watched these side by side as one film, it would still be 5 out of 5 for both, because both of them do exactly what they need to do as a single story. And because of that, there is no other possible ranking I could give it, really.
Not to mention Infinity War is probably the funniest Marvel movie in my opinion.
Yeah, but and this one took some risks and did some really funny stuff too, so again, really great movie. And I think that's it for us this week. It's been great coming back and talking. Hopefully you'll get a more regular casual cinema episode now. But until then, I guess I'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Okay. Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye.